What's going on? It's Sean. I'm back with another video. Anyway, tell you a little bit about my Nashville experience. I moved to Nashville 10 years ago, actually, and I was just 40. So now you know how old I am. And I had all these hopes and dreams of being able to retire from playing cover music and write songs and have artists cover songs and become a better songwriter and all the other same hopes and dreams that everyone else has when moving to Nashville. Now, you might ask, why did I wait till I was 40 to move to Nashville? Well, I started a family late. I toured the country multiple times on my own bus. I was trying to forge my own singer-songwriter career while also balance making money. I lived and played in Europe for about 4 years. And then I also moved to LA and went to film school, and I thought about doing music for film and the Directors Guild of America program, things like that. And I finally decided, music was my passion and I wasn't going to give up on it. The last bastion of being able to support myself through my own artistic endeavors was Nashville. Let me back up a little bit. I started going to Nashville about 20 years ago and making forays into some writers' nights and some gigs, and then I ended up getting a slot showcasing at the Nashville New Music Conference. I believe it was 2002. It only went on a couple years, and then it fizzled. But I played at a place called the Pub of Love at the time, which was the home bar for the Music Mafia, Big and Rich, and Gretchen Wilson, and that whole vibe it spawned. It was a good experience, and I thought, wow, I came from the more rock, singer-songwriter, 70s, pop contemporary writing sensibilities and also sounding wise. And previously to that, even though I liked some country music, it was, still too twangy and wasn't rocked up enough for my taste. The writing just wasn't melding with how I wrote. But starting in the early 2000s with Keith Urban, and I can go into my stories about Keith Urban as well, because a really good friend of mine and my bass player came into my band in the 90s right after he left Nashville playing with Keith. And he's been really good friends with Keith all these years. And so I followed Keith from the beginning of his career on. But I started to see that some of the rock sensibilities were making their way into the Nashville writing thing. So it was always in my mind to keep an eye on Nashville and possibly move there. But life happens and we move along and we move forward. So finally I was able to get there in the end of March 2001, and by this time I had my wife and 2 young boys. So it wasn't as easy as it would be when I was just troubadour Sean gallivanting around the world with my guitar on my back, my backpack and suitcase or whatever it was. Now I had a whole family in tow, and I had to do month-long stints on cruise ships in Northern Europe to try to make 10 grand at a time to come home and support my family. There was a lot more at stake when you're not single anymore. So I was finally able to get everything together, all the ducks in a row, put all the pieces in line, and we moved to Nashville. So I had really started to get serious about my writing. I put out an album called Troubadour 2004, and my writing was getting better. I was using a lot more dense chords and Beatle-esque chord changes, cool passing chords and things like that. And after that, I got into the singer-songwriter thing, into Bob Dylan and Steve Earle, and started working on my lyrics a lot more, thinking about Nashville more and more. When I went to film school in LA, about 6 months into it, I came to the conclusion, this is what I want to do. I'm gonna make one more Hail Mary attempt at trying to make a living through my own artistic endeavors, through my own music. So At 40 years old, I finally moved to Nashville. Would I recommend moving to Nashville at 40 years old? No, I can't recommend that to anybody, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Nashville has a time progression. Nashville is a 10-year town. So I hear 10-year town, I think, fuck, I'm gonna be broke till I'm 50 years old. My wife was like, cool, I'll just make a living, I'll do what I gotta do. You stay home with the boys, you write all day, you go up, do writer's appointments on the row, you know, figure it all out, work your butt off. I have faith in you. God bless her. Okay, so it's a 10-year town. I busted ass. I wrote my ass off. I wrote about 250 songs in the time I was there, and it was just about 4 years. But I digress. I had songs. I had a pile of them already, and I had demos. First person I met was my neighbor, also a songwriter with really good connections, and introduced me to his publisher when he heard my songs and playing. I showed him some songs, and 3 weeks, about 2.5 weeks after I got to Nashville, I got my first single song publishing deal, just by the mere coincidence of meeting another writer, writing with him a little bit, because that's how you get to know somebody. As soon as you meet another writer in Nashville, it's like, oh, how you doing? My name is Sean. Yeah, hey, you know, I'm Don. Hey, let's set up a writer's appointment. So the first thing you do, that's how you kind of become friends with somebody. You set up an appointment to write with them, and everything grows from that in Nashville. So I got offered a single song deal for the song called Love Can Make You Lose Your Mind, and I'll put a link to that song down below. You can check it out. It was on one of my, I did an album, like a double album of demos I made in Nashville, really because I was going on tour and I wanted something to sell. So it's still kind of a demo, but you can check it out. It's called Love Can Make You Lose Your Mind. But anyway, I thought, oh, this is a great omen of things to come, right? Well, I don't want to get too in-depth on my story of Nashville because it's boring to you, but suffice it to say, up until my last year that I was there, I did not have a job. I did go back to Europe and do a cruise summer of 2013, just so I could take my wife on vacation, basically, because we were so broke. We were so broke in Nashville. I'd never been that broke in my life. It was very humbling that I could not make a living in Nashville. I always made a living. It didn't matter where I lived. I don't care if it was Alaska. I was always able to play my guitar and sing and make a living. At least make enough to contribute by the time I was married. Not the case in Nashville. Does not matter. I could go through the whole litany of reasons why, but, well, of course, it's, you know, it's a seller's market. People come there to make it and get famous, so, you know, you're not going to get paid shit for anything there. I wrote hundreds of songs. I wrote well over 100-something songs with other writers. I wrote a lot of my own just because I was so prolific. Had a lot of holds. I got 4 cuts. I probably made about $15,000 on music in 4 years, which, by the way, is pretty good compared to a lot of people. I know, well, a friend of mine has written 6 #1 songs, and he never made $1 million out of 6 #1 songs by major artists like Keith Urban and Toby Keith. Never made $1 million. So people do a lot of different things, and they kind of embrace the gig economy, and they do whatever they have to do to make money. People wanted full music videos for like $300 there. Stuff that would cost $30,000. Needless to say, we couldn't get paid for anything. We couldn't make any money. I was doing custom music for people that would send me lyrics, and I would write music for them, and we were doing demos. We had a demo studio that we had, you know, a lot of nice gear. We had a demo studio with a drum room, tracking room, all that kind of stuff. Just hustling our asses off the entire time we were there. So, Nashville. Let me give you the 101 and rundown on it. Should you move to Nashville? Well, that depends on how old you are, what level you're at as a writer and or player, and how much shit you're willing to slog through, and how much time you have to slog through that shit to be able to make some money. So here we go. All right, should you move to Nashville? Well, I wouldn't recommend doing it at 40 years old, but if you have nothing else to lose and are single with no family, then why not? You have nothing to lose. If you are young, or you are a country artist, that's specifically, or you want to write in that genre, that's a whole subject in itself that I will do a video about. Writing within the Nashville, I call it the Nashville box. But if you are young, absolutely move to Nashville as soon as you can, because the sooner you get there, the more of a network you're gonna have. You'll never get used to making money like I did in music, so it'll be no shock to you to have to be a barista or work at some office somewhere, or do what you have to do to make time to write. But do I recommend going there, working a full-time job and doing music part-time? Probably not. Music has to be your priority, I'd say. Other people have done it though. But if you're young, you want to be and like country music, write in that genre, play in that genre. Well, player, it's a little bit different, but move to Nashville. If you get to the point where you're one of the better players in your town, or the best player in your town or region, and you want to be a session player, move to Nashville. Start out doing demos, working with artists, doing live shows with artists, going on small tours with artists, and build from there. I have a friend of mine, more of an acquaintance, from Jupiter, Florida, where I live, who moved to Nashville right around the same time I did, 10 years ago, Chris Condon. The last I heard, Chris Condon was the musical director and guitar player for Billy Ray Cyrus. And he does a lot of studio session work as well, and he's made a name for himself. He's a great guitar player, and he did what he had to do, slogged it out for 10 years. I think he was able to make a living from it after a few years, maybe 3 or 4 years. So if you're that guy and you're a player and you want to be a studio guy and a session guy, you absolutely can, and you should move there as soon as possible. You'll only get better, because once you get to Nashville, you will realize and be humbled by how great everybody is that's there. One thing that surprises people about Nashville is the fact that the players and all of these so-called stars bands are usually much better players, better singers, and way better writers than the artists themselves that get signed. I'm not going to talk about any specific artists, but I know for a fact, and have met a bunch of them, that their band members are way better than them. I knew a guitar player who's way better than I'll ever get, and a smoking writer and an amazing high tenor singer. Has backed up a lot of stars and artists, and he plays with a kind of a mid-tier big major country artist these days. Might be his musical director. Since I left Nashville, I'm really not in on that whole scene anymore, but everyone in his entire band, including him, is better than the artist he plays for. So Nashville signs specific artists with a specific look. Think Luke Bryan. There's a specific tall look. There are other nowadays, since I left Nashville, they're signing more fat guys and things like that. That Tennessee whiskey guy, I don't know his name. There's a couple other ones I've seen. Like I said, when I left Nashville, I left Nashville. I don't listen to the music or anything. So if you're young and you want to have a career that's Nashville based, move there as soon as possible so you can learn the ropes, learn how to write in the Nashville box, become a better player just by osmosis, because some of the greatest musical players in the world I've ever seen are there. Guys who can come up with parts on the spot that exactly fit and that sound exactly like what's on the radio, but aren't those exact licks. If you can do that, you'll be set. You'll have a career. I'm not saying you'll get rich, but you'll have a career for sure. Want to be a writer and write within a certain Nashville box? Nashville's the place to be. For me, The first thing they told me when I got there is, this is what the publisher told me. He said, you're a great writer already. Your changes, your chords, the way you lift your pre-choruses and your choruses, you know, spread out. Like, I can't teach you anything about writing. He goes, but you need to learn how to write in the Nashville box. And the first thing I'm going to tell you is, dumb it down. You have too many chords. You have too many complex chords. You have too much of a range, a melodic range. You're singing from low baritone to high tenor. You know, he goes, country artists are more like this. There's a box. You don't go way down to way up. He you know, this guy, by the way, this guy has one of the biggest songs in country music history by the biggest artist in country music history, probably. He wrote probably the biggest song in country, at least in the last 30 years. I'm not going to name any names. So I sat there and listened to exactly what he said. So I tried my best. I kept dumbing down my writing. I kept writing within the box. And I was fine with that, actually, because when you chop off a lot of things you could do, you get better at chopping away all the bullshit and honing down to, especially lyrically. Best thing to be able to do is to write a simple, poignant, perfectly crafted lyric. And that's one thing that I definitely think Nashville helped me with, is lyric writing. And to be able to write a three or four chord song and still have it be touch people and be a great song, that's not as easy as you think. So I do thank that publisher for telling me that, and other writers I wrote with and publishers and stuff. It's only when they started to include all the rap influenced, hip-hop based cadence in their lyrics and the talking over the songs, melding of genres. When that started to come in, that's when I started to say, okay, all right, yeah, I see this shit. Because when I moved to Nashville, and just before I moved to Nashville, I was interested in being Nashville because of the 70s singer-songwriter vibe and the fact that they tracked everything live. And I liked the way they sounded, and they had real guitars. They started getting rid of the guitars, and they started getting rid of the real drums for drum machines, and all the about pop music that I abhorred. That started creeping into country in like a year or two after I got there, and that's when I started to glaze over. I stopped writing like a year before I moved out of there, and we moved out of there the end of November, Thanksgiving 2014, just because I was sick of it all. I had over 250 songs with probably 150 demoed that I'd written at the time I was there. I wasn't going to write just to write anymore. Writing became my job, my vocation, and I didn't see any reason to continue writing, so I was more focused on what to do next. And that was, unfortunately, that was to move back to Florida to regroup, to be able to play music, at least some of my own, and being able to support my family again. So that's what I concentrated on from then on. But I digress again. So the first thing you do when you move to Nashville is you go down to the row. You go down to the NSAI, Nashville Songwriters Association International. They have writers' rooms there. You meet other writers. They have mixers. You join the NSAI. They kind of tell you, here you go, little sheep. Go off. This is what you need to do. And they have critiques for your songs. You go there a couple times a month. Like I said, they have songwriting galas. They have rooms there, writers' rooms you can utilize. And it's definitely a place that I've met some other writers. And I met some good writers that just had that thing that definitely could have become artists. I did a lot. Oh, and then you start doing writers' rounds around town. Find out where all the writers' rounds are that everybody goes to. And they're all different nights in different places. Some of them are by invitation. You got to go there and you play, and they see you, and then they invite you back for like the invite rounds. And one place I never played was the Bluebird Cafe. I could have played there. I played everywhere else, but you had to do asinine shit like go stand in line in the afternoon outside, and then you got 3 minutes to play. Then they had to critique you and then invite you. It's just, I never made it down there. I was always demoing or writing or working, and, you know, I was already in my 40s. It wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't something that, you know, I felt that I needed to do or brag about bragging rights. I played everywhere else, but I never did make it down to the Bluebird to play. I went there. It's a tiny ass little cramped place. I saw some artists there and stuff. It's a good room for sure. So to recap, you should absolutely move to Nashville if you're young, you're a country writer, or you want to be a country artist. Get there as soon as you can to build your network, because it's going to take a long time. They say it's a 10-year town. I've seen people show up and be signed immediately and break out after 2 or 3 years. The label puts them on tour with a band and gives them a van and a trailer, of course, that they all have to recoup. But yes, if you're young and you want a career, go there. If you want to be a player, make sure you're the best player in your own hometown before you go there to become a studio player. If you're older, if you have a family and older, it's up to you. It might be worth trying. My wife and I were going to give it 5 years, but at just about the 4-year mark is about all I could take anymore. I just, as a man, I couldn't take not making a living anymore. It just, it grated on me and took over my entire psyche to the point where I just couldn't take it anymore. I'm not used to not making money like that because I was older. But being older gave me other advantages as well with my writing and life experience and things like that. So I would say be patient. Expect to be poor for years and get out to all the writers' nights, see all the bands that you like the players of. Any friends you meet that are playing, you go support them. Any writers that invite you to write, you go write with them. Any artists you meet and you connect with at writers' nights, you keep that connection. You socialize with them, you meet them, because inevitably one of them is going to get signed. I knew a couple of them were on The Voice, American Idol. One thing you're going to notice is that the talent level. The talent level is off the chart. So if you want to be around that, because, you know, it's going to lift everyone up, you're just going to become better yourself, or or if you're not talented enough or don't want to put the work in, it's going to blow you out. But the talent level is amazing. If you want to be around that, it's inspiring. If I were 18 years old and that's what I wanted to do, I would pack my bags, I would move to Nashville, I'd become a goddamn barista. Probably not me, but I would drive Uber and just, I don't even know, work construction, do whatever I had to do. And I would easily spend 15 years there before I thought about leaving, if I had what it took. So that's Nashville 101. That's should you move to Nashville. I'm going to go into a lot more in this Nashville series. So I like moving. So that's why I make these videos like this on my iPhone instead of my expensive equipment with my lights in my studio. It's not for lack of production quality. It's because if I'm just talking about something, I feel like I can flow better while I'm moving. Music Business 101 in cars. So my name is Mormelo. Thanks for being here. Please like and subscribe. Please send this video out to people. If you like what I'm doing or you want to hear more, please comment below, good or bad, and we'll see you on the next one. All right? Bye.